we say something that is not exactly written by him. And especially when it's at some variance with the plain meaning and what's called the prima facie meaning as given by Srila Prabhupada's words. We should be a little reluctant, we should be hesitant to presume to know that what I'm saying is in pursuance of Srila Prabhupada. It's best to stick to what is visibly, manifestly Srila Prabhupada's own words and the spirit behind those words. So we should be very careful to pay attention to the translations, the word for word, and the purports. That's the first note. Now, I make a subsidiary point on this as well, that we should be careful even to refer to Vaishnava commentaries. We have to understand that in essence, when we're reading Bhagavad-Gītā as it is, or giving a class on it, we are reading the commentary by Srila Prabhupada. That's his commentary. He has a certain emphasis, and it is not accidental. He is consciously writing the way he does. And if we want to be good students of Bhagavad-Gītā as it is, we should particularly pay attention to his emphasis that he makes in his own purports. Okay, that's the first point. A bit lengthy, I know, but it needed to be explained. Secondly, I need to make a point about, there's a certain language that is used in the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad-Gītā and the last 6 chapters. This language refers to words such as karma, jnana, duty, yoga, and how there's this use of the phrases Krishna consciousness, devotional service, again and again. Now, the question comes that even on some rudimentary understanding of Sanskrit, we think sometimes the translation is a little far-fetched because the phrase Krishna consciousness was not there in the Sanskrit. Well, how did Srila Prabhupada derive it? So, even before we even come across the example, I want to illustrate one example in particular, jnana. Now, jnana, of course, everyone takes to be knowledge. However, in Sanskrit, it actually does mean consciousness, awareness, and cognizance. This is the Sanskrit, just the dictionary meaning, not just knowledge. So sometimes we have a misunderstanding of the word itself. Yes, it can be knowledge, but it is comprehensive, and it does include consciousness, cognizance, awareness. Now, so the question comes, how is the word Krishna consciousness associated with jnana when it is used in the Gita? Well, it is like this, that at least it is consciousness, right? Jnana is at least always consciousness. However, because there is this fact that awareness is not amorphous, it's not in a vacuum. It is hinged on the absolute truth. The absolute truth has 3 phases, as we heard again and again for the last 4 days. Explanation of Bhagavan Vacha, that there are 3 aspects of the absolute truth: impersonal, localized, and personal. So it is not wrong for jnana to be understood exactly as Krishna consciousness. In fact, it will be a mistake to not understand it as Krishna consciousness. So now, when and where it is Krishna consciousness will be the subject matter of that particular text when we come across it. But just bear in mind that we should not exclude right from the beginning this idea that Krishna consciousness cannot be jnana. It can be, and in some cases it's a mistake when it is not understood as Krishna consciousness. So, now associated with this topic is this idea that the word supreme comes up again and again, simply on its own. Supreme, Param, the absolute truth. That also, it's not wrong for it to be translated as Krishna. Again, because the absolute truth is realized in three aspects. Now, especially for a person who is a devotee, it should be always read as Krishna. Always. It's a mistake if it is not. There should not be this hesitancy or duality or this doubt that it may not be. That we are perhaps embellishing, we are perhaps taking a license. No, it's no license. In fact, Bhagavad-Gītā becomes ununderstandable if you do not accept Param as Krishna. It becomes mysterious, as in confusing. So if you do not want to be confused, and this is a very important point also, that it's a rare exception when Param, the Supreme, is not Krishna. So that again will be dependent on the text that we will study. Now, then comes this issue about that Bhagavad-Gītā covers Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and how there's something very important to notice about this. Srila Prabhupada does not treat the sections that we attribute as Karma Yoga as Karma Yoga. He treats them as Bhakti Yoga. Jnana Yoga section he treats as Bhakti Yoga also. So, the point is this, that the principles that are enunciated or covered under Jnana Yoga or Karma Yoga actually do apply to Bhakti Yoga also. That's the important point. You cannot separate, you cannot make some kind of arbitrary division within the Gita. The whole Gita actually is on Bhakti Yoga. That's the correct understanding. Prabhupada wrote in the introduction that it is a treatise meant for the devotee of Krishna. It is meant. So it's not having all this dichotomy that we impose upon it. And remember, this is Srila Prabhupada's own treatment of the Gita. He approaches the Gita, every verse, right from the beginning, as if it is meant for the devotee of Krishna. So that's Srila Prabhupada's own treatment. So, and remember, we are studying his commentary. So therefore, these so-called lesser sections of the Gita should not be dismissed out of hand, because they have a relevance to the devotee of Krishna. Now this leads us to the third point I have made here, which is that the Bhagavad Gita as a scripture should not be treated as something that's meant for the neophyte. Also, that's also a mistake. It's a mistake for which, mistake doesn't mean that we arbitrate. We will pay for that mistake. That's the point. We will dearly pay for this mistake. That if we presume that Bhagavad Gita is meant for some neophytes, the fools, the uninitiated, it's not true. I can give you one very simple anecdotal evidence that you can consider yourself. Srila Prabhupada, even when he transcribed, if you like, the 10th canto in the form of Krishna book, if you read it very carefully, he again and again refers to the Bhagavad-Gītā within the Krishna, meaning within the 10th canto. And even in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada again and again would cite references from the Bhagavad-Gītā. So, really, it beggars this belief that it's for the neophyte. It's a mistake. Therefore, we should be actually very, very attentive to the Bhagavad-Gītā. Now, there's a fourth point I make, preliminary observation still, right? Not even started the first chapter or the first verse. But you will notice that all of these things are very relevant. Because as soon as we begin, all of these things will come into play immediately. So therefore, the necessity to explain this. Fourth point is that Srila Prabhupada, he will go into great lengths into explaining some Vedic norms.
Vedic what?
Vedic norms, N-O-R-M-S. Vedic standards, another word. Such as a woman is protected when she's young by her father, married by her husband, older by her grown-up sons, and so many other norms, so many other standards. And he explains them very elaborately. However, it is also a mistake to assume that because he comments upon them, that they carry the same weight as every other one of his purports. So, in other words, we should understand there are some things that are more significant than others. Now, at the same time, these norms, these standards should not be dismissed either. They have their role to play. But it is not equal in all respects with every other statement of the Bhagavad-Gītā. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Also, you have to understand that some of these standards and norms, they applied in a very different yuga, different circumstance, different time and place. And but still, it is important to understand them, to how they applied and the relevance, the role they played at that particular circumstance, at that particular time. There's a fifth note I make, and I believe it's the second to last one. So two more points, and this is the next. The question of envy. I was in England, and of course English people pride themselves to know their own language. So one of them questioned whether Srila Prabhupada was correct in using the word envious again and again. He said, wasn't it he was really meaning jealousy? So actually, the person who raised the question was mistaken. Prabhupada actually is correct. His use of the word envy is correct. Now I'm going to just explain that particular point here. The distinction, the subtle distinction between envy and jealousy. Envy is directed to the person. Jealousy is to the objects the person may have. If you're envious of them, you don't want them to have those objects of desire. But if you're jealous, then what you want is what he has you would like to own. So it's the person or the objects the person possesses. So when Srila Prabhupada says that people are envious of Krishna, they're envious of him being the supreme enjoyer, the supreme controller, the supreme proprietor, the beneficiary. They would like themselves to be. Or if they're very magnanimous, they'd like to say, well, let us all be shared. I also. This is envy of the person. It's his exclusive identity. He is the one unchallenged supreme personality of Godhead. So this word, and jealousy comes up when, well, it's okay, whatever he may be, but I'd like those things myself. So it's like sometimes we learn a language, but we don't learn our language as fully as we need to. And then we accuse the person who's using the language properly. In this case, Srila Prabhupada. So that's the 5th point. Now, so the question is why this is a preliminary observation. Why is it needed to be discussed now? Because Bhagavad-Gītā is a treatise meant for the devotee of Krishna. A person who is not envious of Krishna. You cannot hope to benefit from the lessons of Krishna if you envy the speaker of the Bhagavad-Gītā. You cannot, it's not possible. That the dynamics of acquiring knowledge, of realization, of benefiting does not happen if you envy the person who is speaking it. Arjuna did not have this fault. He had his problems, but this was not his fault. This was not one of his problems. Now, for my own purposes, and I'll share it with you, I always, when I make a statement which is my own, I seek a reference. So this is based on Shvetashatra Upanishad 6.8. Na tasya karyam karanam charityate. Na tat sama cha abhyadikas cha drishyate. Parasya shaktir vividhaiva shruyate. Swabhaviki jnana bala kriyacha. The Supreme Lord has nothing to do, nothing is equal to Him or greater than Him. He acts in different phases by manifesting His parts and parcels, which are all simultaneously differently situated by His unlimited variegated potencies. Each potency acts quite naturally in sequences, providing Him full knowledge, power and pastimes. So Krishna, we have to some or other do something with our envy before we begin the Bhagavad-Gītā. You have to put it aside, take it up afterwards, something. Put a blindfold around it, something. You have to put it. You cannot come into Bhagavad-Gītā with this attribute. So there must be this preliminary effort. Now there's an extension of this. We should similarly not be envious of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, you see, he occupies a unique position too. Until Srila Prabhupada came with his commentary, no one understood Krishna. That's literally, no one understood Krishna as he did. Not even in India. Barring the great souls, the pure devotees, we're talking about the masses who are having any other form of Bhagavad-Gītā in front of no one. Through the Bhagavad-Gītā, except for His divine grace, no one. Srila Prabhupada holds a very unique position also. And he should not be minimized. Guru avagya, avelana, to minimize his position. We should not minimize Krishna's position, but we should also not minimize that person who is the repository of Krishna's divine grace. It's not a normal situation. And therefore, we should understand that when Prabhupada says in the introduction that we should, that commentators, they try to kill Krishna. They go against the will of Krishna. we have to understand that Srila Prabhupada is a person who has proven that he fully understands the will of Krishna. You see? If there are others who did not, by the same token, Srila Prabhupada is a person who did understand the will of Krishna. Very significant point. So I come to my final observation. And I knew it would take me most of the class anyway to get to this. There are two technical points to make. One is the use of the word pra as an affix to many Sanskrit places. So Prabhupada explains many times in his lectures, pra means prakrishta rupena. Prakrishta rupena means the form of that suffix, which is full, perfect, complete, in its superlative state, its topmost form, perfect form. So just remember that. When we come across pra something, then it means the perfect topmost form of that something. Now in a lecture in Bombay in 1974, Srila Prabhupada actually also says that the word pra means that which is sufficient. In other words, it's not insufficient. It's sufficient, it's complete. And also he said it's extraordinary. So if you can remember this when we come to the verses, it will do you a lot of good. The second technical point is that there's a prefix of the long a in front of something, another word. So it's just it has a number of meanings which I'm just going to go through. It means to, towards, up to, until, out of, from, among, from, in, out, in, at, on, all through, completely. So it has a number of comprehensive meanings, which now if you remember them, when we come across the verse, it's going to reveal something. It's going to give us some very nice insight into the verse we will try to study. So there is sufficient time, and I will begin with chapter 1. So now we begin. Chapter 1 is entitled Observing the Armies on the Battlefield of Kurukshetra. Now, there's a question, what is the relevance of this particular chapter? As somebody also pointed out in one of the classes recently, that the Bhagavad Gita actually doesn't begin until chapter 2, when Krishna starts to speak. Asocyan and Vasocastvam. Technically, Gita doesn't begin until then. So why chapter 1? So this is just another observation, but it's specific to do with the chapter 1. It means this, that it's included as part of the Bhagavad Gita because before the Bhagavad Gita can actually begin, there is a prerequisite on the part of the student. And that is being shown by Arjuna in this observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. There is a subtext, an understanding that in the scene, in this whole chapter, Arjuna expresses his dilemma, his perplexity, and he turns to God in his condition. That's the subtext. Bhagavad Gita is meaningful, it's relevant to the person who, like Arjuna, recognizes his difficulty. In the first chapter, it's very graphic portrayal of Arjuna's difficulty. how and why he becomes overwhelmed. So, in other words, it's a very genuine condition. It's not a, staged. It's very deep. It's deeply felt. So that soul who is in that condition, it's a bit like a confession, which has become a bit of a farce because it is done so often and it becomes meaningless. But this is a genuinely true confession of the soul, that he is expressing his perplexity. It's based on what he sees around him. The difficulty, the insurmountable difficulty, the impossible situation. Now you see, because when you are feeling like this, the Bhagavad-Gītā becomes very meaningful to you. That's the point. Because you're very sincere. Because it's so important to you. It's so important, Arjuna says, that even if I have sovereignty over the earth like the King of Heaven, unrivaled, it will not drive away this confusion, this difficulty, this perplexity. We are actually all in the same condition, but we have to recognize it. Chapter 1 deals with this honesty, this full confession, this submissiveness, and this turning to Krishna, to God. You see, this is very important point of the whole chapter now. So, it's like they say, unable to see the wood because of the trees. We get so involved in the little details, we forget this overall point. This overall point is very significant. So now, chapter 1, text 1. Okay. So this particular verse, in its translation, as well as the purport, you could give this a title, and that is, the Gita is historical. It is history. It is not made up, it's not fictitious, it's not imaginary, it's not concocted. And so this particular verse establishes this. Dharma Kshetre, Kuru, by the name Kuru Kshetra, a place, a physical place. And at a time when this incident, this actually took place, at that place. That's the topic of the verse, right? Yes. Now Srila Prabhupada makes a number of points before even dealing with the actual what Dhritarashtra said. First point is, Bhagavad-Gītā is a theistic science. Very interesting point. This is what it is. It's a theistic science. What does that mean? It means it has to do with understanding God. Theism means understanding the supreme, absolute truth. And it is a science. It is not an idea. It is a science, just like physics is a science, chemistry is a science. There is right and wrong. There is some clearly defined understanding of everything to do with God. Who is God? What He is? Who am I? Or everything to do with the subject of theism, but presented as a science. Bhagavad-Gītā is a theistic science. And here Srila Prabhupada writes that should be read very scrutinizingly. Science, any science, it's not a haphazard, it's not whimsical. You can't just throw things around. You have to have a clear, systematic understanding of the subject. That can be understood by other scientists of that subject. So it has to be approached with this in the same way that we would approach any other science. Now, specifically this science, unlike other sciences, it is not a product of research and trial and error. This science has to be, Prabhupada writes, be learned with the help of a person who is a devotee of Sri Krishna. Bhagavad-Gītā, the theistic science, has to be read scrutinizingly with the help of a person who is a devotee of Krishna. Okay? This is the requirement. This is Srila Prabhupada's preliminary observation before going into the Bhagavad Gita itself. And so, this should not be dismissed. He is taking the pain, the trouble to say this, not without reason. So the idea of scrutinizing Bhagavad Gita, also it is indicated that it means to actually, we cannot do it by ourselves. You cannot scrutinize by yourself. You need the help of a person who is a past master, who has gone through that scrutinizing with his help. And that past master, Prabhupada is calling him devotee of Krishna. That's the point. So devotee of Krishna is not a label that is left for us to willy-nilly apply to somebody. He is a past master. He has done this scrutinizingly. With his help, your scrutiny, your study, your careful, your attempt to understand now can be possible. It's possible for it to happen. Now, Srila Prabhupada also makes the point that we should do this without personally motivated interpretation. In other words, without any prejudice, without some preconceived ideas of our own. We shouldn't say, no, I understand. No, you don't understand. The point is, your approach is, please tell me. I don't know. It's a sign of humility. That I think whatever I knew is incorrect. Is insufficient. Or maybe mistaken. Therefore, please start from the beginning. Sanatana Goswami does that with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I don't know who I am. And Prabhupada makes the point in the Chaitanya Charitamrita through that particular verse in the purport. The person who is saying that is the person who was the most learned person of his time. The most learned person. He was so learned, the Nawab, the king of Bengal, used to consult him. He is saying, I don't know who I am. And he is not being insincere. He's being completely sincere about his point. Saying here that we have to be free from motivated interpretations. We have to be free from the idea that I have an understanding. With that humility, we have to seek out a person who is a past master, and with his help, read Bhagavad-Gītā. In other words, if we don't have this approach of taking the help of a devotee of Krishna, invariably we will add our 2 cents to this. Invariably. It's helpless. We will be driven to do that. We will say, no, I'm very clever. I know this stuff. So this is the departure from other sciences. In other sciences, speculative sciences, speculation is encouraged. Speculate. Think up some more ideas. But that's not helpful in Bhagavad-Gītā. Not in this science. Here, it is poisonous. It will spoil your effort. So, Prabhupada uses this word that in the Gita Mahatmya, there it says one should take the help of a devotee of Krishna. So, I have one reference for that, where it says there. Where is this there? And my reference that I looked up is from the Sri Vaishnaviya Tantra Sar, verse 24. Yoga sthane siddha pite shilagre sat sabhusacha yajya cha vishnu bhaktagre pathan siddhim param labhet. The highest perfection of life is attained by one who recites the Gita at a place where yoga meditation is performed, at an exalted holy place, before the Shalagram Shila, and during the performance of a sacrifice, and especially in the association of devotees. Vishnu Bhakta Agre Pathan Siddhim Param Labhe. One will benefit from his Pathan, reading of the Bhagavad-Gītā, if he has Vishnu Bhakta Agre, if he does his study in the association of a Vishnu Bhakta. So it's not there, but if anybody wants a reference, this is from the Sri Vaishnaviya Tantra Sar, verse 24. It's some of the things I do. When I study, I try to find reference for all the points that Prabhupada actually makes. And this was what I came up with. I thought it was very nice that there is a nice reference there. Prabhupada makes the point that, okay, so somebody may say, well, I'm doing it scrutinizingly, I'm taking the help of a devotee. But some or other manages to depart from, again, what is the right spirit of the Gita. So Prabhupada anchors this by saying that the example of clear understanding is shown by Arjuna. In other words, your idea of clear understanding cannot depart from Arjuna. Arjuna is the example of the first person who directly heard the Gita from the Lord, and his understanding therefore has to be the standard by which we measure our understanding. So it's very clear, you see. Now it's not nebulous, amorphous, that somebody may come up with their own. No, it's anchored in the exact way that it was understood by Arjuna. Now you have something very concrete. Okay. Now you can measure. Because Arjuna's understanding is not so mysterious. It's very clear. And he will make it clear. So that's very nice. A very deep philosophical point, but anchored in a very nice graphic example that anyone can understand without any speculation. So Arjuna's example is what we can call self-evident. It doesn't need too much explaining. And had he not understood it correctly, Krishna would have already told him, well, you didn't understand this. But Krishna actually does approve of Arjuna's understanding. Srila Prabhupada then holds all of these points taken together as the kind of understanding one can expect to have if he understands Gita through the disciplic succession. In other words, all of the points taken together so far is what is constituted as learning Bhagavad Gita through disciplic succession. All of these points taken together. So, learning by disciplic succession is also not some label. Oh, I'm a card-carrying member of a discipline. There's no card carrying. It's a qualification. It's all of these points taken together that constitute what it means to understand Bhagavad Gita without personally motivated interpretation and through the disciplic succession. So Srila Prabhupada says such an understanding of the Gita surpasses all studies of Vedic wisdom and all scriptures of the world. That's, very like a climax to this book. That should somebody be so fortunate enough to have such an understanding of the Bhagavad Gita through the disciplic succession, as exemplified by Arjuna, then his understanding of Gita is such that his wisdom will not be lacking. He will not need anything else from any other source, even from Vedic source. Very powerful point. We haven't even completed the first verse. Already there's a lot of nice points. Prabhupada's phrase here: one will find in the Bhagavad Gita all that is contained in other scriptures, but the reader will also find things which are not to be found elsewhere. That is a specific standard of the Gita. That's the Gita. Now we're getting a clue. So we don't need to modify. A person who is a good student of Gita, he doesn't need to go elsewhere now to complete his understanding. It's all complete there. He doesn't need to add anything. He doesn't need to subtract. And therefore, he's simply wasting his time if he does go outside of the Gita. And then Prabhupada ends this preliminary, his points. It is the perfect theistic science because it is directly spoken by the Supreme Personality of God and Lord Krishna. So he began that the Bhagavad Gita is a theistic science. So he ends this entire discussion by saying it is the perfect theistic science because he's giving one qualification, the most significant qualification, the most important qualification, because it is directly spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. Therefore, it is perfect. It's not lacking. It's amazing. See, because we come from a background where everything is insufficient, always. It's never complete. It's a remarkable thing that something is going to be complete now. This is a departure from our conditioned background to come to this. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada has to painstakingly, step by step, explain this point. That here, you don't need to come with this idea that, well, I'll have a good jumping board from which to embark on a life of speculation. No. No speculation. It's perfect. And if we surrender to this, we will actually find that there is nothing lacking. So, after this, Srila Prabhupada actually begins his purport to the first verse. And here he says, referring to the word Kurukshetra, the Gita is historical. The discussion taking place at a geographical place and at a particular time in history. So that's what is indicated by the word Kurukshetra. And Prabhupada says it is understood that this philosophy, this discussion actually took place. It evolved on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, which is a geographical place, a physical place. It took place. Srila Prabhupada's use of the language is very good, evolved. Because in the West, everyone loves the word evolve. Things just come, new things come that didn't exist. So Prabhupada says, well, it evolved. Since you love the word evolve, basically it means it took place. But it gives satisfaction to the conditioned people who love evolve. They need things to evolve, otherwise they can't digest their meal. Everything has to evolve. So Prabhupada said, okay, it evolved. It took place in a battlefield, a known geographical place. And Prabhupada then says, and it was spoken at a time when the Lord himself was present on the planet. So this is another shocking thing. The Lord, present Lord. Lord is like mysterious. We'll never find him. It's a never-ending search for finding. And here he is, present. Oh, I wasn't part, but we were monkeys. No, evolved. No. So, we're going through all this, it's almost like, therapy. You're trying to bring a drug addict back down. It's like withdrawal symptoms. We go through this mentally infatuated withdrawal symptoms. We can't let go. But here he is. There's a place. It is not an imaginary topic. One time, I had this picture of Bhagavad-Gītā with 4 horses. Somebody said, no, it has to be 5. I said, why 5? He said, because, 5 senses. I said, these are horses, these are not senses. 4 horses, not. He said, no. I said, this is not your imagination. Each of those horses had a name. They were personal. They were individual. He's saying, no. So you see, people have these withdrawal symptoms because they are sold on this idea that this is just imagination. So why 4 horses? It should be 5. Somebody else will come along and say, no, 6, the mind. Now nobody knows how many horses. Only 4 horses. Battle of Kurukshetra, 5,000 years ago. The Supreme Personality of God himself personally present, indicated by the word Kurukshetra. This place, this geography. It's like saying in London, in Delhi, something happened. Now you cannot keep on insisting, oh, it's imagination. There is a place. When a newspaper tells you this incident took place at this time, at this place, they're not making a story. And somebody says, oh no, it should be like, this is news. The news is God appeared 5,000 years ago at one place and he spoke. He spoke the perfect theistic science. So now Srila Prabhupada devotes some to explain the word of Dharmakshetra, that this Kurukshetra is a holy place. It's a Dharmakshetra. it's been acknowledged by Dhritarashtra, who is not a particularly saintly fellow. He is saying, Dharamkshetra. It's accepted. It's a holy place. Now at this place, Prabhupada points out, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was present by the side of a person called Arjuna. That's very significant. All religious places means they are called holy because of some connection with God. God personally is present with one person. The all-powerful, omnipotent personality who can do anything and everything, and who does anything and everything that he wants, is standing by the side of one person. This person, Dhritarashtra, is wondering what happened there. This is significant. God is there, and not on my side, on the side of the enemy. So Prabhupada says he was highly doubtful about the possibility of his sons. He's making the connection. Oh, something seems to be not right here. There is God, holy place. God, holy place. Oh, doesn't sound good. On the side of the enemy, not on my side. But Prabhupada's way of development, his commentary is so beautiful actually. So of course he's wondering what did they do. But Prabhupada makes the point that he did not want to compromise. Nonetheless, with all the odds stacked against him, in the sense of the personality of Godhead himself being on the other side, he did not want to compromise. He's wanting his secretary to confirm that this is what will happen. He doesn't want that some or other, some kind of settlement is reached. He really, truly wants the end of the enemy. Even though he has this doubt, this God, why God, why are you there? Why at the holy place? This is not good. Prabhupada also makes a point that he knows that the other party is very righteous, religious. So this doesn't help. Even though he has this desire that there's no compromise, he doesn't like this. This is giving him an ill omen. It's like not good. And in this doubt, in this fear, he wants his secretary to allay his fear, to reassure him, oh, don't worry about it. The fact that it's a holy place, the fact that God is on the other side, the fact that they're all religious, but he doesn't say that. But that's what he wants. That's what he wants. See, the living entity, despite all odds, he wants people to tell him, oh no, you're good. You're going to live forever, healthy, and you're going to be rich. That's what we want to hear. We see everything going against it. I'm in hospital. There are pipes sticking out of me. The doctor had an ugly look when he went away. But still, I want reassurance. Everything's going to be fine. This is Dhritarashtra. So let's just number these things. So Dhritarashtra has three concerns. The religious significance of the place, the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the religious virtues of his enemies. All three are disturbing him. They're like, oh, please tell me something, Sanjay, please. What happened? I'm noticing these three things, but tell me something. And of course we'll learn that Sanjay is very tactful. He understands. He understands the mind of his master, that this is what's on his mind. And this is why this verse is also very interesting. Because in one sense, the last verse of the 18th chapter answers this point. That there is no hope. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partha Dhanundara, Tatra Sri Vijay. Victory, so, from the first verse to the last verse, it's so comprehensively established by Sanjay that you're deluding yourself. It's not a great possibility. It's a foregone conclusion that the other party must be victorious. There's not even a shadow of a doubt. So, so much for Dhritarashtra's hopes. Prabhupada goes a little bit more about Dhritarashtra's mind, meaning his prejudice, by the word mamaka, Pandava, mine and those others. Even though they're the sons of his own brother, he is not willing to call them mine. Mine stops here, others start from there. This is mine. So Prabhupada says his mind is revealed, that he has this prejudice, this bias. He's a biased inquirer. He has a motive. He wants to know what's happening with his motive in mind. He's not interested. What's the weather like? Is it fruit bearing season? Which fruits are in? He only wants to know this. My interest and the other who are my enemies. So he's not being at all, subtle about it. He's actually very shamelessly frank that I'm just interested in one thing. And of course, Sanjay tells him at the end, well, it's a hopeless idea you have in your mind. So this is the spirit. Srila Prabhupada, straight away, no verses have been covered other than the first one. Straight away Prabhupada is saying that it's already settled. The outcome of the battle is already settled. The very reason upon which Dhritarashtra had his doubts were the exact reasons upon which the outcome of the battlefield is already settled. Those are the reasons. Holy place, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and those who are the devotees of the Supreme Personality, it is already settled. It's not even a doubt. It's a foregone conclusion. So this is how the first verse ends. Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't even know we went over. I normally do not go over. But we have actually ended the first verse, which was more than I could have hoped for. So Prabhupada says that this is the significance of the word Dharmakshetra and Kurukshetra, apart from the historical and Vedic importance. Thank you very much for your patience. Are there any questions? Yes. Is there a mic?
Can we have the mic?
have just a quick question. How did Dhritarashtra know that Krishna was God? Like, can you talk about that a little bit? Like, was he actually aware of Krishna being God?
Yeah. I'm just going to say something background before I answer that. It's interesting that people may sometimes know God, but they still have certain desires that are not sanctioned by God. You know, it's just a general observation. So Dhritarashtra was one such person. The first difficulty is sometimes people think, well, can somebody really want something that God himself is against? But anyway, I'm just making the point that it's not all that rare. Now, in Dhritarashtra's case, first of all, he had been part of the Rajasuya Yajna, you know, the sacrifice that Yudhishthira performed, that established him as the emperor of the entire world. And the first worship was given to the most worshipable person in the assembly, and that was Krishna. There, aside from Sahadev's comments, there was a lot of statements explaining that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. So in that assembly, and that's partly why Shishupal couldn't, all of these things were like poison for him. Every statement that glorified Krishna, he became more and more venomous. And that's what he rebelled against. He rebelled against envy, that Krishna is that person. He said anyone can be, but not him. Anyone. Anyone but him. So he expresses the fullness of envy. So Dhritarashtra was there. He had, and he wasn't a fool actually. He was quite a learned person. But here's the point. Despite knowing that, he entertained this idea that he can still hope for his aspirations even though Krishna was against them. That's the more significant point. Rather than whether he really knew Krishna as God. He did know, many people knew. But see, that's the state I was trying to point out earlier, that most people, they may well be aware of God and where he stands, but still they choose to do something against. Am I right? Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you very much. Tomorrow is verse 2. Is that okay? Well, I'm sorry it's as slow as this. I would like to cover faster, but I think what's the point if I just skip over some of the... Let it take its own course. So this is a departure from every day that normally happens. We'll just cover this kind of approach. All right. Grantra Srimad Bhagavad-Gītā ki Srila Prabhupada.